Hey, you. Thanks for joining me today on the Pausecast. Today, I have a story. I have a story about a client that I thought was worth sharing because I think a lot of us are going through this right now. Whether you are in a career transition, you're looking for a job, or you're just not quite sure what is next on the horizon for you. Today, I want to tell a story about Julie. Julie is someone who came to me a little bit in desperate mode, where she had been a lifelong, incredible learner, great performer at her company, top company in Fortune 100, we'll call it, tech company. And she was done. She was just ready to move on and really didn't know exactly what was next. She just knew she didn't want to be where she was anymore. And I think we can all relate, right? Whether you've been in a job for a long time or a career, we've all felt a little bit like we wanted to move on or do something different if we aren't feeling satisfied anymore, which might mean you're not learning new things, which might mean there's conflict that you don't want to avoid, or drama or politics on the horizon at your job or in your role, or you actually have a change of heart where you want to do something different, that you're no longer feeling pulled or called towards whatever you're currently doing, which is really an alignment issue. So back to Julie. Julie was this long tenured person, uh, very, like I said, a high performer. However, she just felt, after literally decades at her company, that it might be time to move on, and she was excited about that prospect. So we got together and we talked about her situation. So she's also the breadwinner. So that means the pressure's on. If you are the primary breadwinner and you have kids, you are providing for your family, you can't just go plunge into something willy-nilly or haphazardly. I think there's a lot of thought and meticulous effort that might go into something like a job search, because you don't want to just jump ship and then have to maybe find a new job in a month when that other job doesn't pan out, or the company dries up and there's no funding if it's a startup or something like that. So what had happened was Julie had come to me, and after she'd applied for a few jobs, she just decided to put her resume out there, get going. And she had some pretty promising leads. There were companies that were calling her back, recruiters that wanted to talk to her. She even had a few preliminary interviews. After a couple weeks of this, she found out that it really wasn't going anywhere. She did not have any offers. In fact, and unfortunately, she was ghosted a few times, meaning she didn't get a call back for no reason beyond what she was told. Recruiter didn't call her back. The company another time didn't tell her why. They just stopped pursuing her, and so on. So these are very frustrating places that can happen, and environments that can happen. I am sure you agree, right? And how many times have you had this happen to you, whether you're in a role or just looking? And my heart goes out to each and every one of you who is looking for a job right now, because it is tough. I know, being in the Bay Area in San Francisco, jobs are few and far between, or things have just slowed down right now. Here we are in mid 2024. And so what do you do? Right? What do you do when you have ghosted applications? Or, I even know another client who's been applying for over 100 plus jobs, and is thinking about being what could be different, because clearly something's not working. There are jobs out there, you guys, but we got to find them, and we got to be above the cut above everybody else, because there can be hundreds of people who have applied. And the case was that was the case for Julie, which she had learned that through a recruiters. So after being ghosted, after being frustrated, we talked, and we started to work together. And what was interesting was we had this initial conversation where I kind of showed her and told her and walked her through what could be different. Because if she wanted to be this VP level executive, particularly in sales, how will she stand out for that? And I started painting a picture for her about her vision for herself and how it could be purposeful work. Things that had never occurred to her, other than just to get your resume out and do the next thing on the ladder. And she started to think about this a little differently. It actually was great food for thought, because how many times are we kind of feeling burned out or stressed, and that big picture doesn't occur to us? And what's really going on, by the way, is physiologically, our brains are in tunnel vision. We are not capable because of that stress cortisol and just fight or flight mode that we're actually living in because of this. Got to get a job. Got to get out of here. Got to do the next thing. That we tend to fall short of the big picture and see that. And that's actually physically impossible if you're stressed. Because if you're running from the tiger, are you going to look up at the clouds of the sky? Are you going to see things through rose-colored glasses or even just lenses that are fully balanced perspectives? Not really. No, you're not. You're going to be running for your life. You're going to see what the next escape hatch might look like in front of you that you can run towards to get from A to B and go for it. And I think that's really where a lot of my clients end up if they're really feeling stressed. So what we're working on now, and this is why I wanted to tell you, is thinking about the job approach in a whole different way. Because if you can approach looking for a role in an opportunity that puts you in your vision sense of self. So who are you becoming when you go after a vice president sales role? Who are you? What do you talk like? How do you present yourself? How do you show up? Could be a very different way of being versus I've got this interview. I'm excited about it and I'm going to go for it. I've studied. I'm like, this is where I got to go. Do you see how those two things could be different? I know that they are very radically different in my opinion, because now we're talking about the how. How you show up is actually an incredible way of conveying things like your confidence. Do you have executive presence? Are you capable of what you're saying? Are you flexible? So whether you come from a top 100 company or a scrappy startup, you can flex. And that's something that can be approachable and discussed because that comes across in your interview. And the other thing I want to tell you, you may have known, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times in different episodes, but can you guess what percent of interviews, or in general, just discussions or presentations, is verbally digested by the listener? If you guessed 7%, you are correct. So that means 93% of what and how you show up is not your words. It's not whether you know the knowledge. In fact, knowledge can be taught. So it's almost like a second or third thing sometimes, as long as you can fit things like the culture. If you come across and convey whatever the interviewer is looking for, I think that can go a long, long way. And remember, the vision can pull you through. So if you are a woman who is excited moment by moment, living your best life and finding your next adventure, that's an example of a vision statement, then maybe you would show up a little differently than I'm going to be a vice president of sales. Because that doesn't tell me a vision. That's just a goal. The goal is a finite, objective finish line. And to me, getting a job is that. It's a goal, and it's a great goal. Nothing wrong with goals. But if we do not have a vision towards that goal, especially for ourselves, then it's really it's much more difficult, and it's not as motivating or inspiring for any of us. And we need that when we're going for job interviews. We need that when we've gotten the 20 no's for that one yes that's coming around the corner. We really, really hope. All right, so let's get back to Julie. So here she is, breadwinner, hadn't really given it much thought around the how of showing up, and she's currently employed, so she had time on her side. But I think what's interesting is knowing that she had a vision for herself and knowing what's in the way of that. Because here's the thing: if we all were living our vision every day, we'd be doing that. We would be living our dreams. Yet, are you living your dreams? Maybe you are. Maybe you're an incredible, high valued leader rocking the world. However, I know a fact for me and most of us, there's things in the way, things like belief systems, things that are unconscious, right? That another fun fact I have for you is the similar stat where over 90% of the brain is unconscious. I think it's around 7 or 8% of the brain is conscious. It might even be 6, according to Bruce Lipton. So that's a lot of unconsciousness, whether it's beliefs, unconscious bias, unconscious habits, what your filler words are, all those things. Those are super, super unconscious they don't really help us. So if we figure out what those beliefs are and what are the blocks to you living your dreams and being in your vision, because your vision is not who you are today, it's who you're becoming, then we can start to move the needle. We cannot do what we desire to do, usually, unless we allow those to get out of the way. And a lot of it is inner work, too, I want to say. So it's not just the tactical, let me get my resume out, let me track who my networking with. Those are important, but it's also the why and how of showing up. Why don't I feel as confident as I used to? What's going on there with me? What am I feeling? Oh, I'm just afraid. I'm afraid again of rejection. That's a big one. I know for me, that's a really big one. And so talking through that and getting support is so, so important. And it's a lot harder to do it on your own because we're in our own heads and we don't have that perspective that can really help from the outside of things. So what we're doing now is a whole different approach. And we've just started working together, but I wanted to share this because I think it's super relevant for so many of us who are focused and intentional and incredibly talented to find your next adventure. That's what I like to say for a role, your next career move, whether it's a new job, a transition, a career change, a layoff, going back into the job, a maternity leave, a pause that just sets you up for something different, because that's what's needed next. And you can't get to what you want to do unless we go through those things. Otherwise, it's very, very transactional, and it can feel like the dredging slog it is sometimes. And wouldn't you rather be successful and get those calls back and someone to really feel your presence and to know that this person has the vision that is above heads and shoulders of most folks on the interview queue? All right, well, I'll leave it at that. And if you're relating to Julie, if it resonates and her story resonates with you, and that you also feel maybe you want to be a little more purposeful, you feel like maybe that's a little lost right now, you want to reinvent yourself, that feels a little challenging, or you're not sure where to start, this is where I come in. This is how I help high value leaders really rise to their next level of leadership, whether it's the promotion, the new job, or just a transition into something different. And it can be exciting, it can be exhilarating, and it can be scary. All of those things. And it doesn't have to be. It can be actually quite well managed with the right team. And I would love to support you if that's sounding like something up your alley or interested to talk further about. And meanwhile, let me know how you're doing with things that are around the lines of feeling maybe like it's a slog if you're interviewing out there. I know a lot of people who are, and my heart goes out to you, and know that you are so worth it. You will find a role, and you can show up knowing that this is the best thing you can be doing right now, but it also is in service to who you are becoming, which is your next version of yourself in this new job. And we can't do that without a vision. Thank you so much for joining. And let me know, drop me a line. I want to hear how it's going. And if you need help, just reach out, message me. You can find me all the regular channels, and let's talk. In the meantime, thank you so much. And I wish you all the best in your next steps.